Hello, good evening, everybody. It's good to see you and spend some time with you before the holidays. I am super excited, Mr. Ellis, to have our special guest joining us. How are you, Mr. Ellis?
I am great. I'm energized right now, and we just had we had a great conversation earlier, and just energized about having these real conversations around the holidays and about getting healthy, right? And we're going to talk more about this with our special guest, as y'all can see on the screen. So we're going to act like she's not here right now. We're going to talk more about our
Well,
special guest, but I'm just really energized to have these conversations and have this be a starting point, not a start and end point, but a starting point for more conversations like this moving forward.
that's right. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to House Call with Dr. Gigi. I'm Dr. Gigi Ilbayumi. And the special guest is somebody very near and dear to my heart, Dr. Sylvia Bollie. Welcome.
Thank you.
Dr. Sylvia was my medical student and resident, and because she was so outstanding, I chose her as a chief resident, which is an honor, really. We had a residency program in internal medicine at GW George Washington of 108 residents. 4 hospitals, and
Wow.
she was one of the chief residents. And you are going to see why in just a few minutes she is so special, because yes, she's beautiful, but she's just as smart as she is beautiful. So we are so excited to have you, Dr. Sylvia, and the Holiday Health Edition. We really want to get some tips and learn more about how to stay healthy. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it true that between, I guess it's Halloween and after the New Year, the average weight gain is something like 12 pounds?
Whew, yeah, it can vary. It can vary depending on what
Maybe
studies you
that's
look
just
at.
me. Maybe it's just me.
It's very individualized, right? And so that's why, you said personalized weight and wellness expert. It really has to be personal. We look at these big randomized controlled trials, right? And it will say the average is 1 pound or 0.37 kilo. But, at the end of the day, it really what matters is embrace you. What happens for you? Like some people are not going to gain anything. Some people like me and you, Dr. Gigi, we're going to, pack it on if we don't pay attention. So I'm
Mhm.
with you. I'm part
But
of that
listen, I want to just say
now.
something because I hadn't seen you for a few years, and then I saw you. It's like, wow, you look fit. You had lost some of that baby weight. You look great. So before we get into it, tell us about you, Dr. Sylvia. Where you from? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? We want to learn more about you.
Okay, sure. But first, can I say thank you? Thank you to you, Mr. Ellis, for the platform. Thank you, Dr. Gigi, for being here. You knew me before all the degrees. I feel like coming out here, I'm like feeling like playing Drake, started from the bottom. Right? Like that's what I feel like too, because you knew me before all of that. And I just thank you because you've been such a mentor, a friend, and an inspiration on my career.
Aw,
And y'all, Dr. Gigi is the real deal. What you see is
aw.
what you get. And she has influenced the lives of thousands of doctors. And so we are so
And I
grateful.
will pay you later. I'll send you the check. Thank
No,
you.
she
That's
did.
very sweet of you. Thank you.
But yeah, so yeah, you saw me. So like when we left off, okay, so for those who don't know me, hi, I'm Dr. Sylvia Gonson-Boley. I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, ATL, and I'm first generation American. I'm Liberian American, born to two parents who were restaurateurs. So I'm also a foodie from birth. I love food, okay? And growing up in a West African home in the South, so I ate a lot of food, like fried chicken, fufu, jollof rice, mac and cheese, you name it. It was carb heaven. But at the same time, when I was 8, something very pivotal happened in my life. My grandmother immigrated to the States to live with us. And Grandma Sylvia, whom I am named after, she was like this illustrious woman. Like she was an entrepreneur, she was an educator, she was a baker. So I heard a lot of tales about her, and I was so excited to meet her. And she was fabulous. But because of the lack of health care, she had developed diabetes, hypertension, and then eventually had a massive stroke. And what I didn't realize then, but now with hindsight is 2020, because she was an immigrant, because she was a Black woman, and because she had obesity, because she was heavy set, she encountered a lot of racial and weight bias as well. And so everything was blamed on her weight. And how I internalized that as a young woman, as a young Black woman, is that, oh, I can never gain weight. So I developed probably what would be known today as fat phobia. I was just scared of gaining weight. And that's kind of hard when you're a foodie, because what is you go back and forth, that yo-yo. So I go from overindulging, like a holiday like this, I'm already thinking of how I'm loading up my plate with the mac and cheese, the collard greens, the jello-fries, like all the stuff, like, and going back for seconds. But then going back to that dieting mindset where, oh, I can't eat anything, I got to restrict, and back and forth, back and forth. And, my metabolism kept up with this until where Dr. Gigi meets me. In residency, I had my first child. And for a lot of Black women, that is the trigger, as I like to call it, a weight gain trigger or an obesity trigger that will lead you to develop that extra weight that leads to the disease of obesity. And obesity is a disease. I know it can be a dirty word when we say it in the public, but I want to be clear. It's not about necessarily a certain size, but it's about having excess body fat that actually causes inflammation and is linked to over 236 diseases. And as Black women, we are disproportionately affected by it. And one of the key hormonal triggers for it is pregnancy. And that, for me, is something that happens in my family. And I developed preeclampsia. I had obesity. And it was really hard for me to lose the weight because of another epidemic that we don't talk enough about. And I learned Mr. Ellis has a psychology background, but the stress epidemic. So I had my child during chief year, right before the end of third year of residency, right before chief year, where I was helping to manage 108 residencies. We underwent a program change. Like there was a lot of things that was really stressful. And so how I cope with the stress was how I knew how. Sugar, pizza, not sleeping, trying to please everybody, trying to be perfect. And that really weighed on me literally. So I did not lose the baby weight till my baby was talking, walking. Like it's not a baby anymore. Like you can't
toddler weight. It's toddler weight.
Yeah, exactly. And my wake-up call, though, the lowest point was because, as you can see, I'm just a very honest, transparent person. And it got to the point, and I'm also a very spiritual person. So I feel like God doesn't let me get away with stuff, right? So I'm here trying to counsel my patients on their healthy lifestyle, asking them, are you eating healthy? And I literally hear that voice in my ear, which to me is God saying, are you eating healthy? The fried chicken I had just eaten for lunch, the cake. It's like, are you exercising? Then I hear God say, are you exercising? I hadn't exercised since I was pregnant. You know what I mean? So I was like, I just felt so convicted. And if we look at if I nerd out for a moment, we look at the studies, it actually shows that doctors who are overweight or have obesity are less likely to diagnose and treat obesity. Wow. So I was actually experiencing that because I felt that drop in confidence and not wanting to say it. So I decided I'd go back to dieting, and it just did not work because of the fact that I was at a time in my life where I didn't have time to count calories and I didn't have time to overreact. So what I learned to do was first really love myself. First and foremost, that was the turning point, because a lot of that dieting mindset comes with a lot of self-hate, and shaming and blaming. So I had to release that. And then once I had a positive mindset, I got open to the fact that I hadn't learned everything I needed to know about obesity, about how the nutrition, about how the body works and releases fat in med school. So I got boarded in obesity medicine, became an active member of the Obesity Medicine Association, joined the board. Dr. Gigi knows I'm an overachiever, so I did all the things, became drastic.
Dr. Sylvia, you have talked about so much, and what I'd like, it's almost like you've set up the agenda for the discussion today.
I got stuck with 236. I got stuck with 236. She said that. I'm like, whoa, that's a whole conversation.
Yeah, but you mentioned something that I think is sort of so important, and that is, and Mr. Ellis can also weigh in on it. You know, when people hear the word obesity, especially
Mhm.
coming out of a doctor or a clinician's mouth, there is so much shame associated with it because, frankly, doctors, can be really judgmental and can
Mhm.
make it feel like it's a moral failing. So let me just share a little something with you. I was in resident clinic, and one of the residents came in to tell me about a patient. And she said, this patient came in and she has obesity. And I spoke to her for half an hour about how she needs to lose weight. So I said, but here, and the reason that she's here, it says that she may have had a stroke.
Mhm.
So, and she was in the emergency department. So, did you talk to her about that? No. So I walk in, and it's a black woman, probably maybe my size, my age, and she's just sitting like this. Because, I mean,
I know
first
that.
of all,
I know
that was
that.
not her primary concern. And what
Mhm.
they've shown, actually, studies shown that people who are chunky will go to the office for basically to have their eyeglasses, an eye check,
Yes.
and they'll get lectured on how overweight they are.
Yeah.
So I just think it's important for us as sort of healthcare clinicians to kind of own that for many people,
Mhm.
how they're being treated, especially Black women, is a disincentive, and that we actually shame them. So I'm so glad that we have this opportunity, to talk. I will also tell you that we all have ways of self-soothing. Some of the
Mhm.
ways are not adaptive, they may be maladaptive, but they're getting at something that we're dealing
Mhm.
with. And here I'm going to toss it to Mr. Ellis because you've got the master's in psychology, so you can speak
Well,
to that much better than I.
the number one thing I say to people is obesity is a diagnosis, it's not a description, right?
Mhm.
And it has become part of our kind of our vernacular in terms of society, right? Oh, she's
Mhm.
obese, right? We use it as a description when it's really a diagnosis, and we have to treat it as such. And so, if we can change our mindset. And I love what you said, Dr. Sylvia, about loving yourself. And so, you have to love yourself enough to want to get healthy, right? And so, there's a mental piece of that says, okay, we yo-yo with that diet, that lose weight, gain weight, because we haven't really dealt with whatever that trigger that is making us go back to those sugary foods, to those carb loads food, to those foods that give us comfort. That's why they call it comfort food, because it's
Mhm.
comforting our soul, it's comforting our minds, it's making us feel better. That's something that's impacting us. So if we can get over that, we can learn to love ourselves. We'll start seeing ourselves in a different light, and then we'll start making different decisions and behaviors, and we'll stick to it. We'll be disciplined enough because we love the person that we are, that we look in the mirror every day, and we're okay. So even if we're a little bit fluffy, we could love that person too, because we know we're working on it and we know we're not perfect. And so if we can accept that mentally, then I believe that that is the catalyst, the flow to everything else.
Absolutely. And you actually said a couple of things, if I may just comment on them, because number one, talking about those triggers, and I'm an integrative obesity specialist. So, meaning I look at the body, mind, and spirit, right? And so often when we are treating someone who has the disease of obesity or any medical condition for that reason,
Mhm,
a lot of times there's silos, right? The doctor will look at it one way, the
mhm,
psychologist will look at it one way, the pastor
mhm,
will look at it one way, and then there's how the person sees themselves. But really, the best way that can lead to sustainable change is if we look at the total being and all those things. So, for instance, let's say someone has sweet cravings. That's something that I deal with a lot in my practice, right? So the body part of it, the biological, there's insulin resistance, right? That's the hormone that allows sugar to enter into the body. And if your body's not able to process that, then you'll actually want sugar. Now, psychologically, how you may interpret that is, I want brownies because I'm feeling sad and that makes me feel good. So I'll get a
Mhm.
brownie. And then spiritually, what might be the trigger is that I hate my job. You know what I'm saying? And so every time I did this job, I don't feel fulfilled, and it's easier to
mhm,
stuff something in my mouth. So,
mhm,
but if we can tease apart those roots, then you can lead to that sustainable change
Yeah.
instead of diet culture or the old way, like Dr. Gigi, to your point, where we just lecture somebody about food and say, okay, stop eating this, don't do this. And we never ask why. It is the
Exactly.
why that we're missing. Like,
Exactly.
why is it? And that why comes from them. And then, yes, there might be some biological clues that help us and psychological clues that they may not
Mhm.
see, but
Mhm.
we need to help put it all together. I say weight is not a number, it's a story. And there's a
Mhm.
complex story behind it.
Mhm. I want to just talk a little bit also about, I'll say, African American women
Mhm,
primarily, and not, I mean, men obviously can be impacted as well, but I
mhm,
feel that of all ages, right? Women were not valued by society, were shamed, but then there's also the internal dialogue, and even
mhm,
within sort of communities and families, the shaming.
mhm,
So we could be aware of that. I mean, I'm aware of that, right? But I
mhm,
still do a lot of comfort eating. I mean, I'm trying to
Mhm.
work on really dealing with the roots of that, because really, to your point, we focus so much about, what we're eating, how much, instead of getting to that. So how does one approach that? What do you go through with your patients?
Yeah. All right. So, Dr. Gigi, you said something real hot. I have to talk about it though. Also, we need to remember the historical context, right, with
Yeah.
body shaming in Black people. And that is part of the work that I do that was almost difficult for me as a Black woman. There is a whole movement of Black sociologists. They have a health at every size movement. And I have a lot of respect for them because they take a sociological approach to this and say, well, because of systemic racism and how medicine was set up in that context, that is where a lot of this obesity diagnosis come from. So therefore, obesity is a social construct and does not exist. Now, as healthcare professionals, we can't jive with that because in my own family, I have seen the effects of it. In my own life, I have seen the effects of it, and certainly in my patient population. But I do think we, as Black healthcare professionals, need to give credence to our sociological brothers and sisters who bring that up because it does play a role in how we perceive ourselves and how our patients perceive ourselves as well. So that's to the point you were
Well, I
making.
think that that's an excellent point because sometimes we throw out the baby with the bathwater. I
Mm-hmm.
think two things can be true, this and that. It's not an either or. And I think it's important, to your point, of understanding the historical, the societal, all the different pressures. But it's our life, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
not just how long we live, it's how well we live. Are
Yeah.
we living to our maximum potential of happiness, right? And, productivity and all the things that are important to us. So I so agree.
You
I
know,
just,
when I was counseling, one of the things I used to kind of a metaphor I used to use with my patients because they liked it with clients. They liked this. It was easy for them to understand. I was like, okay, you see a still lake and you throw a rock into the lake. And you see all these ripples, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
when I work with a client, I say, we got to get to as close to where that rock hit the water as much as
Mm-hmm.
possible. Because we're going to treat, if we're going to be treating ripples all day long. We're going to continue to treat ripples, but we got to get to the close to what that core issue is, and then we can work out from that, and the ripples will go away if we get as close to where that rock hit the water. And then that's something that they can take home with them. Oh, I got to get, so we ask those questions. We get to that, to as much to the root as it. And we also have to recognize that there's an intersectionality of all of these things that happen in our lives, right? It's not just one rock, it's multiple rocks, and all the ripples start to come together in one space. And so we say, okay, how do we deal with each one of these things in its intersection? Being a Black woman, you cannot take that away from the weight conversation, right? Because there is a
Mhm.
whole historical piece to that. Dr. Gigi, and we've said it on this show many times, medical apartheid. We've talked about
Yeah.
whole
Mhm.
system. So we cannot dissect it and just say, oh, we can just talk about it. That shaming that happens with Black women, the doctor comes in there and he's saying, yeah, I'm there. And oh, you got this, we start talking about your weight. No, I'm not here for that. Or as they say, no, that's not my ministry. Right now, what I need for you to do, what I need for you to do right now, and we'll talk about it. But what's happening in there subtly is the biases are being supported by, because you came in there, the lady comes in your story. She came in for a stroke. You start talking about her weight. She's got her arm folded. She leaves, right?
Mhm.
Doesn't come back. And what does that contribute to? The bias that Black people don't, they don't follow up. We don't follow up.
Mhm,
We're not
mhm,
adherent to it. So why give them the best medication? Why give them the best treatment? Why offer it up if they're not
mhm,
going to be adherent? But you didn't satisfy her need when she came in.
mhm.
And then she walks away and she could potentially had a stroke. And if she didn't, she might have one now because she is still obese. You were running
Exactly.
that pretty
And
good job.
and has high blood pressure,
And
but
has high
I
blood
wanna I wanna
pressure.
complete that story because when I walked in, the first thing that I asked her is because she had been in the emergency department, that must or I say said, "That must have been very scary for you to be in the emergency department, you know, how are you
Mhm.
feeling now?" But, yeah, this is, I think we can kinda all relate and, also, I mean, obesity, the word,
Yeah.
I think you say, Dr. Sylvia, that, it's a disease, but it's just been used in such a negative
I
way.
agree. I put that out on Twitter. I got crickets, but should we change the name of it? It's a hard, and we could have a whole academic discussion about it. Like the disease of obesity itself, to the point of why people still think it's a lifestyle condition. Even doctors are
Mhm.
not immune. 69% of patients said they have experienced weight bias, which is the official term of this at the hand of a doctor in a doctor's office, right? So it's not Yvonne says change the name. I agree, sis. Like we need to change the name. But the problem that we have, it was only in 2012 that the American Medical Association even recognized obesity as a disease. Up
Mhm.
until then, it
Mm,
was just thought of as a lifestyle condition, calories in,
mhm,
calories out, and we weren't looking at the criteria that makes it a
mhm.
disease. But once the newer science has come out, now it has been accepted as such. And so I think some of the reticence to change some of the things like the name, to change the diagnostic criteria, BMI. If you've seen any of my work, that's one of my soapbox issues,
Woo.
especially for Black women. Like we just have a piece coming out in Obesity Pillars talking about is BMI racist and sexist. So, so there's a
Wait,
lot
can
that
you
needs.
tell us what that is? Because not
Oh,
necessarily everybody
sure.
knows what that is.
So the BMI is the body mass index, and that is a measurement tool. It's meant to be a screening tool that your doctor or clinician will use to see what is your weight in proportion to your height. And then they put it on a chart and they look at where you fall in comparison to other people at your height. And that's supposed to be an indirect marker of your risk for disease, for fat mass related disease. So if you have excess body fat, that can put you at risk for health conditions. Now, the problem with the body mass index is it doesn't actually measure fat. So at point blank. And the other thing, and because of that, it has a lot of biases against based on your age, based on your body composition, like if you're more muscular, based on your biological sex, based on your race, ethnicity, and it also doesn't distinguish if you have other conditions that may trigger you to have excess body fat. So there's a lot of flaws in it. The other thing that it
Wait,
also.
can you
Mhm.
because you've got so much information that you're giving us. So let's talk about how BMI may be a problem in terms of African Americans or people of African descent.
Mhm.
Why would that be an issue?
So yeah, so people, so for one thing, where you it's a tool where you're comparing people to a group of people, right? So the comparison group has to be similar first
Mhm.
and foremost
Mhm.
Speak on it.
to who you're comparing it to. So the actual BMI, like the origin comes from Belgium in
Oh,
1832.
oh, well,
Yeah.
I'm very Belgian.
Right? And then when we started to actually use it in the United States, which it got adopted, in the 70s by Adolphus Keys, who was another physiologist, it actually was using life tables that, again, mostly white men were
Mhm.
the standard for. So if we're comparing us to that standard, we have a lot of differences. Now, granted, some people in this article that'll come out, you'll see, talks about some say, well, race is a social construct, blah, blah, blah. what we're getting at is that people need to be assessed individually. I agree. But if we're looking at a population-based tool, we have to agree that certain groups of people have some similarities, and that if we're going to compare people, you have to be similar to who you're comparing to. And how that shows up in Black women in particular, when we have adjusted the standard comparison, then we find that actually for Black people and for Black women, that our cutoffs are a little bit higher, because we tend to have more of what's called subcutaneous, so under the skin body fat, and that's actually not as harmful as the visceral fat or the fat that's around your organs. So that's another key point. So we're comparing, like, yeah, we may be a little fluffier, we may be a little curvier, but it's all right. Like, it's not putting you at risk for disease. At the end of the day, as clinicians, as healthcare professionals, we need to be looking at, is this putting people at risk for disease? Like, how they look, how they feel, that's up to them. But we need to be seeing, and what the studies are showing, that maybe we may not be at the same risk at a certain
and then there's another.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So talk a little bit more about that fat, that different types of fat, and the impact it can have on our health, because I think there's some questions that are coming in. And then how do we measure that fat, right? So we love that. So we talked about this briefly, but let's really kind of talk. What is subcutaneous and visceral? How does that impact our health? And then how do we measure that fat?
Sure. Okay. So subcutaneous fat is, look, we were supposed to be talking about healthy food. Why y'all bring the nerd on today?
No.
A light conversation. You got me.
This is going to be part one, because there's so much to discuss.
Yeah, I love talking. I wrote a whole book, like, because I love talking about it so much. So I can't. All right, let's do that. And then you all tell us. So subcutaneous fat is just underneath the skin. Okay, it's just underneath the skin. The best way, and then visceral fat is what's around your vital organs. So the best way to tell the difference would be doing a DEXA scan or MRI, but we don't do these things normally clinically. So an easy way, and what I adapt in my practice is a bioimpedance scale, and they've gotten a lot better. This is basically like those scales. I have one here. Like these scales that can measure your body fat. It sends electromagnetic waves through the body, and then it checks the water density, how it flows, and then it can tell you what your body fat percentage is and where that fat is approximately. In the office, they'll have a lot fancier ones, but I'm a digital health provider, so I just send them to people and they use them. You can also do a waist circumference, which is an indirect, and that's a very quick and easy way. Measure your waist from around your belly button. Make sure that you're not sucking it in on exhalation. And that can also tell you that's correlated with your risk of disease. And for women, you want it to be 35 inches, though there are studies saying for Black women, 38 inches might be acceptable. And then for men, it's greater than 40 inches.
And I see all these wonderful people that are joining us for the conversation. All right, so we don't want to be accused with false advertising. So we want to kind of get back to preparing for tomorrow.
I know. I knew this would happen. I was like, Dr. Gigi and I together, we're just gonna like have girlfriend talk. We're gonna go to.
Yeah, I'm not helping. I'm trying, but I'm like, this is how our conversations go.
So please,
Dr. Gigi and I will have a call. It's supposed to be 15 minutes, and we'll be on for an hour.
Yeah, exactly. So please share your tips with us.
Okay, sure. And there are people who've asked questions here. So thank you so much for all the comments and the engagement. I love it. And so I saw Yvonne said what carbs are good. So we'll try to talk about those because I know you're thinking about it. Okay. No sweet potatoes. Dressing for me. Give me the substitute. Okay.
Sweet potatoes are good for you, though. Sweet potatoes are good for you. Just not all the stuff you put in it with the brown sugar and the marshmallows and all that stuff. But sweet potato actually is a great.
Yeah. All right. So get it back to Thanksgiving, and if y'all have any questions, we will go back. So I approach Thanksgiving. Yeah, with the 5 M's. Thank you so much, Alice. Ooh, this is fancy. I'm
I'm
not used to
prepared.
having
I'm
a producer
prepared. Come
on my
on
lives.
now.
All right. So the 5 M's, and I want you all to write this down. Yes, I'm a nerd. I'm a teacher, but the longer I do this, and the longer that I'm out of academia, the purpose of education is to transform your life, to help you do better. I want you to leave this conversation with one new thing that you're going to do differently tomorrow. Like
Mm.
we came on, Mr. Ellis, Dr. Gigi, and I, like we got together. We're like, we have to do this before Thanksgiving because we want you to enjoy your Thanksgiving in a healthier way. So please write it down. Okay. So the 5 M's are mindset, because like the ladies of In Vogue say, free your mind and the rest will follow. So we start with the mind, then it's mindfulness, and I'll tell you what that means in very simple ways. Then movement, making time for you. We are so busy, we don't do that. And then meal strategy. And that's where I know everyone jumps to that meal strategy. Just tell me what the substitute is. Tell me what not to eat so that I eat it anyway. And then I feel bad tomorrow. So I don't want you to do that. I want to be able to help you shift the way you think about food, shift your relationship with it. So then you actually want to make these changes. And even if you make a choice to indulge, you don't feel bad about it tomorrow because you're like, I chose to do that and I'm okay with it. I'm at peace with it. So those are the 5 M's. And I'll pause there. And if y'all want me to go through them a little bit more in detail, let me know.
Yes, please.
Okay. So first thing with mindset is really, so mindset is just, this word gets thrown around all the time, but what is mindset to you? It's your why. And it's your pattern of beliefs and what you think about things. Okay. So as we go into Thanksgiving tomorrow, I looked it up because, again, nerd, I like data. So 72% of Americans say what they're most looking forward to is being with family, being with friends. And of course, having lived through the pandemic and having, not seen a lot of our family, that really is the focus. So I really want you to get clear about what is tomorrow about for you? Like, what does tomorrow mean for you? What are you most looking forward to? Because surely, yeah, I come from a foodie family and where food is part of our culture. But a lot of times we make that food center place instead of really focusing on the people who we're around. The other thing I think that's important here in this discussion of mental health is really being clear about what are you worried about and what is uncomfortable? Because a lot of family gatherings, sometimes we're around people that make us uncomfortable or that we don't want to talk about. And it's so much easier to put something in our mouth. Dr. Gigi talked about that comfort eating. And I am a recovered emotional eater. So I know sometimes it's like, let me just keep putting something in my mouth so I don't have to talk or so that I feel good around them. But really tonight, take some time to think about, what am I looking forward to? And what am I also worried about? And then make up your mind about what this celebration is going to be for you. So for me, my family's coming in town. I'm excited to be reunited with them and spend time and enjoy them. So that's the focus of my day.
That's so helpful, because you're right. We do. I mean, I'm thinking about the food,
Yeah.
but it is about the gathering. And you've also talked about the spiritual piece of your practice, which I think, when I think about changing my behaviors, sort of being more attentive. I think we're just so reduced to what are the foods, to your point. So
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that. Now, is it true that the more people that you're around and breaking bread with, that the percent of food that you eat goes up?
Yes, and that's because, again, to the second point, mindfulness. So mindfulness is another thing. It's a practice of being present, being in the moment. That's the easiest way to think about it. And if we're going to be really practical, one thing at a time, just doing one thing at a time. So that means if you're eating. And a lot of times, what are we doing when we're at that gathering? We're like eating and talking and like picking up here and put it there, and when you do that, then you're not mindful. And that's why the consumption goes up. And a lot of times it's because you're so excited, you're just putting things in. So one of the things I recommend is actually not talking and eating at the same time. Now that may be challenging, and that's when you get fancy. So you want to, so I brought my little glass for demo. So this is just sparkling water. I did put a little elderberry tea powder in it, and berries. And it looks fancy. And this is a good, like, low cal way, low energy intake way to just, if you feel like sipping on something or do something, but it's also a way to keep you mindful, like to remind yourself that, okay, I'm going to focus on talking, and then you're less likely to pick up all those things, the nibbles, which I also made myself a sign because I'm a nibbler. So tomorrow I'm the cook. So I'm gonna hang this in my kitchen. No nibbles, okay? I'm a nibbler. So my strategy around tomorrow cooking is put these signs up, and then I'm actually gonna have a protein shake. Oh yes,
come
Yvonne
on
says
home.
talk about those liquid calories.
Yes, come on home to Atlanta because I need you to come by my family is in town, and we need to have that talking and eating conversation because boy, I got a room full of talkers.
Yeah, and the same here. I mean, it's very, very challenging. But again, so personally, I have been on this journey. Dr. Gigi mentioned it. I didn't say so. I gained 60 pounds with pregnancy. I lost 40. I kept 40 on for about 2 years and lost that 40 when my child was 3. So I've kept it off for about 8 years now. And part of it is implementing these strategies around the holidays. And so I do it for myself. I do it for my clients, and it's really important to do. And so Yvonne talked about the liquid calories, and that actually is going to make me jump ahead a little bit to the meal strategies. But the meal strategy, I like to think about my foods in 3 categories. Okay. First of all, I choose what am I going to indulge in for that event, but I choose, is it going to be sweet, savory, or spirits? So yep, spirits get their own category, okay? And so because and and that includes your eggnog, that includes your sodas, all of those, because yes, those also add up very quickly. So if I'm choosing to indulge in the liquid, that means that I'm going to go lighter on the meals. And so how you can go lighter on the meals is a smaller plate, fill up all your veggies and protein first, and then like a little portion, about a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons of the mac and cheese, yams, those kind of things on there, if you are indulging in a liquid, or if you're indulging in the dessert. Now, I will say, and Dr. Gigi knows this, that alcohol is going to slow your metabolism the most. So like if you are on a weight loss journey, you want to be careful with the alcohol because that has a fixed time to get out of your body, and it basically hijacks your body's ability to process any carbs. So think carefully. Is that drink worth
Say
it?
that again. You got to say that again for the people in
Yes,
the back.
yes,
You gotta say that again. Hold up.
yes.
So,
Please repeat it. That is worth repeating for
okay.
sure.
So alcohol is going to slow. Oh, so look, Yvonne said repeat it. Alcohol is going to slow your metabolism the most because it has a set amount of time that it takes to get out of your body. And that's dependent on how many drinks you drink, right? And while the alcohol is being processed out of your body, that means your carbs are being stored as fat. They're bypassing that whole system. And this is biochemistry, right? 101. They're bypassing that system. They're being stored as fat, and any fat that you eat is being stored as well. So instead, yes, Yvonne says eat cake instead. Correct. Cake in this case would actually be a little bit better because it's going to be processed through your body faster than the alcohol that you take. And
when you say alcohol, because sometimes people think alcohol is hard liquor, but the body doesn't know a difference. A shot of whatever whiskey is the same as a glass of wine, is the same as a can of beer, because what you're doing is you're making up for the volume, in terms of the alcohol content. The body does not distinguish. It's all alcohol.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Hi, Miss Pat. Hi, Dr. Keena. I see some of my friends from the Overcoming Obesity Club here. Thank you. Yeah. So so keep that in mind, especially if you're on a weight loss journey, especially if you just want to feel good, like you may over the holidays, you want your energy up. Like the alcohol, especially how much you consume, can make you feel very sluggish. And we usually will say one drink in a setting for a woman, two
Mhm,
drinks for a man.
mhm.
And I know that's tough. Y'all don't come for me. I'm just the messenger. I'm just
Well, but but there is a point though that it has to do with cancer risk. So
Hmm.
when a woman drinks more than one drink a day and more
Mhm.
than 7 drinks a week, guess what? Cancer risk goes up. Same. And why is it different for men? Why is it 2 drinks? Because men metabolize alcohol more quickly. So I don't
Mhm.
know if, people remember, you may have heard it takes less alcohol to get a woman drunker, right?
Mhm.
That's where that actually comes from.
Mhm.
So that is absolutely true. So, you mentioned a psych trick that I like. I was married to somebody who was much larger than me, and we bought huge plates. And so
Mm.
Mm.
with my weight loss journey, in terms of examining some of the things, I got rid of those big plates. I gave them away. So tell us how actually using a smaller plate, because if you look in the United States, the plates keep getting bigger and
Yeah.
bigger. Can you
Yeah.
speak about that?
Absolutely. So, there's something that came, I believe it's the Health and Human Services. They had something called portion distortion. And
Mm,
it's a fun exercise. Like if you Google portion distortion, you can see what a bagel looked like in 1950s compared to now. Like,
Yeah.
and
mhm,
it's 2/3 larger.
mm,
Same thing. The plates, right? We used to have 8-inch plates, then they went to 10-inch, and now the standard is 12-inch. I accidentally bought some paper plates that are now like 12 inches. I see for tomorrow. So I need to be mindful of this. We might be using regular plates. So keep that in mind. 8 inches is probably the size that you want to go for. And even if you, again, are on a weight loss journey, you may even want to do a smaller place, like a saucer or so, too. And then again, as I mentioned, filling that up with at least 50% vegetables is going to be super helpful. And then the other quarter is going to be your proteins, and then adding the carbs that of your choice there.
mhm,
Yeah. So Robin says use a smaller plate. And they've actually done studies too showing that
Mm.
smaller plates are correlated with less consumption and can lead to weight loss if you're looking at that for a proxy. So I think that it does work for people. And we have Dr. Pat. I call her Dr. Pat, but Miss Pat and Robin here are attesting to that.
So I would say, if I can add something to it, so I learned along the way. You can tell if I'm wrong on this. Is that sometimes when we think we're hungry, we're really dehydrated and thirsty,
Oh
and
yeah.
so
Hmm.
when you get those cravings, if you just drink some water, you can kind of help your body. First of all, it's good for your body because it's hydrating, and second of all, we can kind of get rid of some of that what we think is hunger, and stop that snacking, that eating that we do, those unnecessary calories that happen. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I bought the big white plate. I think I got like the 16-inch joint. Like, look, it's incredible, and you really think that you have to fill it up, right? And so
Hmm.
it's a mindset thing because you think,
Hmm.
oh, this plate's so big, I got to put a lot of food on it, and so that
mhm,
smaller plate really does help. I want you to repeat again for people to recognize how that food distribution should be on the plate, because I think that's important for people to
Hmm.
recognize, because when we are going down that assembly line, especially with our families on like Thanksgiving, what's the first thing in the front of the line? It's always the turkey and the carbs and and then
Hmm.
by the time we get to the end and we got a little bit of plate left, we might sneak, a little vegetable right there. So we got to reverse that and maybe start at that other end of the line where the vegetables
mhm,
can work
mhm,
our way towards the carbs and the meat.
mhm,
I love that. And the other thing is to look at everything before you make your plate. So
Yeah.
plan your plate out, because a lot of times, and that goes to the mindfulness, that goes to the meal strategy. Like a lot of times when you're just going and picking, like, "Ooh, I want that. I want that. I didn't know they had that. and then you like just putting things out there. And then
Yeah.
before you look, your plate's like this, right? So one thing I do is go and I look at everything first and really think about, okay, what do
Yeah.
I really want? And I don't even think what do I really want. I think what is worth me eating it? Because I work hard, okay? And
Mm,
I know the work that's gonna have to go into like getting this off. I wrote an article about this, with those calorie counts. They work very well for me because I know the work that goes in. It's almost like money in the bank, right? I think
right.
about the food that I'm eating like money in the bank. Like I worked hard for this money, and then now I got to go waste it on green bean casserole. I'm not eating green bean casserole, even if Aunt Edna said eat it. I don't want that,
Uh-huh.
because it's not worth it. So we have to think about our worth too with the food that we put it in that exchange.
If I can just add a trick that I use, because you're right, we want to fill up our plates and get seconds and thirds.
Yeah.
And just like we go to a restaurant and, they have
Mhm.
such huge helpings, I will actually fill up a Tupperware or something that I can take the rest of it home. So I don't feel, first of all, there'll be enough for me to take
Yeah.
home and I can set it aside. And then I don't feel like I need to eat everything. I can actually
Yeah.
sample stuff later. So,
No, that's a great idea because you're right. I mean, I won't name the restaurant, but my wife and I went to one of those very popular amongst our folks, uh, and it was literally you see people. The portion size was so huge.
Mhm.
And I saw two types of people. I saw the person that would eat half of it and then take the other half home, which I thought was a better strategy. And then I saw the person sitting there and trying to work their way through that plate because, some of us have been scarred from mama and grandmama that said,
Mhm.
finish your plate, right?
mhm,
You don't waste the food, right? Especially if you grew up poor like myself, you had
Mhm.
to eat everything on the
Mhm.
plate because the next meal was every
mhm,
meal was something we had to sacrifice.
mhm,
So I think we have to recognize that's a mindset. One of the M's. That's a
Mhm.
mindset that we have to get out of. Is that what? If your body is telling you you're full, you're probably past the point of being full, right?
mhm,
That message has to travel from your
Mhm.
body to your brain. And so if we're eating to the point, and then that's why we get that bloated feeling because
mhm,
we've overeaten to that point. So if we do those things, we monitor our body, we're mindful and staying in the moment. I'm trying to get all those M's in there, Doc.
Mhm.
So, um, we're mindful in the moment, then we don't overeat, we don't have that bloat, right? And then we take that because I read this in your article, Doc. I've been studying Dr. T. He said you got to take that walk, right? Take the walk right after the meal. Go outside within 15 minutes of finishing. Get up, go outside, take a walk for 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be super brisk, but help your body. That help your body going to maintain the blood sugar levels. It's going to help test your digestive process. Just do that. It'll go a long way to you not gaining that 3 to 12 pounds that can happen during the holiday season.
So, Dr. Sylvia, take us through the 5 M's and tell us what your website is. We want to make sure that we get that information because every year we're getting so much positive feedback. You're sharing such great information,
Mm.
and we want to make sure that people know where to go if they didn't write notes.
Oh, for sure,
Or
for
if they
sure.
want to follow you in your blogs, because
How
those
about
are,
that?
those
Fantastic.
are wonderfully written. And
Thank you.
anyway,
Thank you. So the 5 M's are mindset, mindfulness, movement, make time for you. Make time for yourself during this holiday season. That's that stress management. And then meal strategy. And I see Yvonne said something about mindset that actually I use because she said, let's talk about poor mindsets. Some of us just glory in the fact that we can now have
Mhm.
what was scarce as a child. And scarcity mindset is something that I've really had to deal with too.
Yes.
And let me tell you about scarcity mindset. It will cause you to hoard, right? The body's natural, like biological adaptation is like, if I think I can't get it, when I do get it, I'm going to eat as much as I can. So one of the things I tell myself on days like Thanksgiving and such, rather than saying, oh, it's the only time of year that I eat pecan pie. I say I could have pecan pie anytime. I mean,
Mhm.
and theoretically you can. We create this scarcity for ourselves now, like, oh, I can't eat that and I don't want that. But you can. So remember, if you're starting to feel that anxiousness, like, oh, I can only eat this, so let me eat more, let me get more. I can have this at any time. Why do I want to do this now? I can get more
Mhm.
later if I want to. So, and that usually helps and really slow down. That also goes with the mindfulness and savor the bite. You know, if you have decided this is going to be your indulgence, you don't need to rush through it. Slowly savor it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It can really help.
So, you mentioned scarcity, but there's
Mhm.
also a genetic basis for that. So, as
Mm.
human beings, when we evolved, there's
Mhm.
something called the thrifty gene.
Yeah.
So, when there was not a lot of food, then when there was food, our bodies would hold on to it and keep it. So, I just want to tell everybody it's people like me that kept our species
Absolutely.
going.
Mhm. Well, I say that, Dr. Gigi. I tell my patients that, like I say, if we were in the Paleolithic era, if we were caveman era, I would be eating, right? And you would be the queen of the jungle. Like you would be surviving. So there is a
Exactly.
survival advantage to it. And it's just that the body really hasn't gotten the
Right.
message,
I
gotten
mean,
the
if
memo.
you think about it, having this amount of food as human beings, is something relatively new. So that's why our Native American brothers and sisters really have problems with obesity from the
Yep.
standpoint of the genetics of it.
Mhm.
So can you just take some time about and talk about making time? Because especially women, we've got a gazillion different, competing priorities. So what does that look like?
Oh yeah, I'll tell you very practically today, Dr. Gigi, because like for me, this season, this holiday season is lit. Okay, my birthday was Monday. My
Oh, happy
daughter's birth.
birthday.
Thank you. My daughter's birthday is the 3rd. My wedding anniversary is the 29th of
Okay.
December. My husband's birthday is the 30th. The son's birthday is January 1st, and then we have all these holidays. So
Wow.
I could constantly be, doing something. So today I knew that, okay, I'm the one hosting Thanksgiving. And sorry, I must say aside, Auntie Sylv has come from corn duty, y'all. And now I am hosting Thanksgiving. I am very proud. This is a huge accomplishment. Let the world know, okay? I used to bring the corn, okay? And now I'm hosting the Thanksgiving. So all right, but I digress. So seriously, I what I did today was like my 4 o'clock. I knew that was a meeting that I could reschedule. And the old me would have been like, "Oh, I hate to break my commitment." Blah blah blah. But I'm like, I need to commit to me. I need to get a run in. I know that I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it tomorrow. It's super busy. Friday is raining. So I need to go ahead and get this run in, get this workout today. And so I made time for myself. And I told my colleague, she's in health and wellness space too, and she understood. She was actually, yeah, like, yeah, girl, I'm cooking. So it's fine. And so I think if we can look at our schedules and see where can I put myself on the schedule? And you might not be able to take a whole hour as I was, but sometimes it's as simple as saying, hey, I haven't stood up this hour. I haven't stood up this hour. A lot of my patients, they will be working straight through the morning for 4 hours straight without
Mm,
ever stopping to get a drink of water. So every hour, maybe making time for you looks like I'm just going to take time each hour to take a deep breath. I do a lot of breathing exercise, and people are like, you know what? I haven't even breathed. Like I haven't taken a deep breath recently. Waiting to exhale, right? We have the 2022 version of waiting to exhale,
that's
right? We're
right.
just all walking around. So it's just a great reminder to
You know,
put yourself on the schedule. The comments are lighting up.
yeah,
Wow.
Of course they are.
they're loving you, Dr. Sylvia. And I wanted to address Yvonne's question about the poor mindset. And I will say this: as I got to a place where I could start affording those things, as a kid, there's narratives that we develop as children, right? And we make promises to ourselves, right? Okay, I'm never,
Mhm.
I'm never going to be a parent like this. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to, and there was
Mhm,
things that we look forward to, right? We look forward to, when I get some money, I'm going to be able to go to any restaurant I want to, or order whatever I want, right?
mhm,
And now then you get to that point where you can, and you do, right?
mhm,
And you keep doing, and then that hoarding mentality, and that,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I just get another one. I just buy another one, right? And so like now,
mhm,
like I go and look at my refrigerator, I got duplicates of the same item because I
mhm,
didn't check when I went to the grocery store. Oh, I'll just grab it,
mhm.
grab it, because I can afford it. And so we've got to be mindful about that, right? And understanding how, while yes, there were some challenges growing up, and that is impacted how we see ourselves and how we interact with the world today, we do have to recognize that we cannot go to the other opposite extreme of that and go to gluttony, right? In terms of however that's defined for you personally, doesn't always mean about how much we consume, but just that I'm going to overindulge in this because I couldn't have it as a child. And so,
well, but you know what, Mr. Ellis, I mean, that's so important. But for me, I don't know that I'm necessarily conscious of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it takes work to say, oh, okay. I grew up in a household where my mom, well, my parents would not allow us to have junk food, which that's good. But you know what I did was at school, they had the vending machine. Do you remember the cheese doodles? But I think, that mindset, it's like it's something forbidden, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just kind of understanding what the roots of it are. I also, when I was about 10 years old, I was in a situation where thank God, it didn't happen, but an older 18-year-old guy actually was going to do something harmful. I was going to be sexually traumatized, and I got away from that. But I just recently realized that's when I started wearing baggy clothes. And that's sort of when some of the weight started to come. And remember that sexual trauma, which I did not have, although emotionally it was very, stressful. And, I mean, it was very tough. I mean, even if when I talk about it now, even though nothing, quote, happened to me, to be put in that situation was frightening. But it's only, look, I'm 63 now. 63 minus 1 week, last week, I had that realization.
Wow. Yeah.
So, it is the behavioral stuff is so rooted into, what we do and so forth. Because look, I'm a doctor. If it was as simple as just doing what I know, I'd be skinny mini.
Oh, maybe you wouldn't, Dr. Gigi, just because to the point. And I think that, so two things. First, I want to just say, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And even if nothing, quote unquote, happened, it happened. And
Yes,
it's trauma.
it
It's psychological trauma.
Yes.
And one of the things I do in my practice is I screen everyone for that, right? Because there's something called the ACE, so the Adverse Childhood Event Score. And this was actually developed in an obesity clinic, which people don't recognize. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So what Dr. Folletti found is that people who lost weight and quickly regained it were more likely to have traumatic events in their childhood. So he came up with a scoring system, and it has things, and it's not even just like sexual trauma, but was there yelling in your home?
Yeah.
Did you feel that food was scarce? Like these questions that we're talking about. And then based on your score, you're at higher risk of developing obesity and other adverse health outcomes. And so this is something we really should be screening anyone who presents with obesity with. And so I started doing that because to your point, once we raise that awareness, then we can connect people with the right people, like a Mr. Ellis or someone who can help them uncover it. But if we never talk about it, you won't know.
Self-awareness is a skill that has to be developed and worked on constantly, right? So there's some things that Dr. Sylvia, before we go, I want you to remind people ask them what's in that drink.
I know it looks very kind of chic. And you matched it with your outfit. I know
always.
It's fancy. It's like so. It's some berries and some water, and little.
It's sparkling water, and then I have this energizing elderberry tea, and then I just put a little in there for color. But even if you just put the frozen berries in it with the sparkling water as it melts, it will give it color. And so this is something. No cranberry juice, because we want to reduce. I don't have any juice in it. There's no sugar added in here. The energizing tea, they have a stevia derivative in there, but there's nothing, no sugar add it in there. No
What's your
sucrose.
website? What is your website?
Yes.
We got to get that
Yes. Oh,
information
Ellis,
out there.
can you drop it? But it's embraceYOU weightloss.com. And if you want to get right to the blog, Yvonne is cracking me up, y'all. This blog. She said no gin. I don't know what's going on, but they're having fun in there. But yeah, so that's my website. And you can connect with me there. The holiday, I have a holiday strategy that you can definitely get and purchase as well. And then what I'll be doing on the 3rd, I will be hosting a live coaching class and walk you through so you have your own personal plan through the holidays.
What time is that? I'm going to try.
It's 9:15 on the 3rd.
Oh, okay. Let me write that
9:15 on the
down.
3rd, and you can register for it now through the website. So,
well, I need to make an appointment with you, and I'm serious about that because I learned so much today. And can I just say, I am so proud of you, Dr. Sylvia. No, truly. I mean,
are you going to have me blushing?
No, I'm going to cry because, you know, I mean, I know that I have wonderful students and residents and so forth, but to see you in action in such an eloquent, beautiful way, and you're so down to earth, I am crying. So,
well, I air hugs, Dr. Gigi, because like when I say you have supported me, I remember because I came from a background where I was like groomed to be a professor, right? Like I wanted to be Dr. Gigi. My husband always teases me, like, because I'm such your fangirl. And so like, so I like was groomed to be a professor and to go into academics, but I really felt called. I'm a God girl. So God called me to the community and to the public and to do that. But I struggled. And I remember talking to Dr. Gigi about it. Like, I'm just so embarrassed. You know, I'm not a professor. I'm not this. And you were like, why? Like, you literally, why? You're doing great. Like, you know, and so I appreciate you being part of my journey and really supporting me through all the transitions. And I really am so grateful.
Of course.
So can they order your book on your website?
Yes. I want to tell them though, look, should I spill the beans? I probably should do this, but if you wait till Black Friday, I'm actually going to be releasing it with a journal. So yeah. So go ahead though and sign up for it on my website with your email. And then you'll get that information at midnight on Black Friday. So you'll get a journal and then the tea as well. It's my favorite.
And you might be motivated to get it more on Black Friday after you eat. You tear it down tomorrow. So I'm just
because Ellis, before we go, I know we're over already, but can everybody type in the chat their one action item tomorrow? One thing that they're going to do differently based on our conversation. I really want to know because again, you know, we know a lot of facts as professionals, as doctors, but I think if it doesn't transform, if it doesn't change lives, then what's the point of it? And honestly, that's why I literally changed my practice and changed what I was doing, because I really want to be able to help people change their lives. Just like I had to change my life too. We talk about lifestyle changes, but the thing about it, lifestyle changes aren't going to lead to sustainable weight loss. They're really not. It is the totality of being able to transform your body, mind, and spirit that is going to be able to lead you to lose weight, keep it off, and live well and enjoy what you're doing. So that's the goal.
Well, I'm gonna not talk and eat at the same time. I just love this little trick. I love it. I think that's what I'm gonna do. What are you gonna do, Mr. Ellis?
I'm gonna use a smaller plate. So I'm gonna have two things. One, I'm gonna use a smaller plate, and then number two, I'm gonna put more vegetables than proteins and carbs, because I was carb loading. I had the rice and gravy, the mac and cheese. I was doing it, so I'm gonna reverse it, and I'm gonna have more vegetables, drink water, and then I got to cut down the alcohol. That's my bugaboo. I tend to.
By the way, this is something that I've also learned. The first bite is the most delicious.
Yes.
So think about that. It's like, you don't necessarily, that's why starting with just a small amount. Because after the first bite or two, it's like, okay, I've had a taste of this.
Can I show you? We're way over time, so
okay, all right.
We're in there, but I want to show this to you.
Yeah, that's helpful though.
So this is something. So when we talk about rice, and so that
Mhm.
white, that refined grain, that is what happens to white rice. So they take all of the bran off. They take all that stuff away, and then they just leave you with that white. It's not, you don't have, the body doesn't have to work hard in order to digest this. And so that's why they say brown rice, black rice, all those rices, the wild rices, they're better because they keep that whole grain, and that's better for the body in terms of digestion. So when you get that white rice, they strip it all of that off, and they just leave you with that carb. It's a lot of sugars and stuff, and it's not very good for you. So if you're going to eat rice, if you're going to eat it, get the brown rice, get the whole grain rice, get the black rice, the wild rice. Those rices are better for you than just that white rice. You're talking to a boy that's family from South Carolina. We ate white rice. Okay. All right. We ate Uncle Ben's. I don't know what they call it now. What do they call it now?
Oh yeah, I
And
think
Uncle Ben's isn't even the worst. It's that white, like, what is it, Mamahada, whatever. That
yes,
white, that real white one.
basmati
Uncle
rice.
Ben's is like in the middle because it's
Yeah.
parboiled, so it still has a portion of the skin on it. And then brown, of course, would be the best. But
Yes.
And that takes time to get adjusted. I told you I'm West
I've got
African.
one last
right?
question.
Yes.
Can you come back again and join us?
Yeah, we got to have
Anytime. I'd love to. Thank you, Dr.
Look, Dr. Gigi, we got Christmas coming up because y'all know y'all like to eat around Christmas too. Get the Christmas hams, and cupcakes, and all those parties. Parties are the worst. It's not the dinner. It's the parties. It's the snacking.
Yes.
All that stuff, and the
Hold
drinks,
your drink.
parties. Woo, that's a get
Hold the
you.
drink. Don't talk while you're eating. So many points. And I'm glad I see everything in the chat. I'm glad you all got so much from it. KG Larkins, Yvonne, Miss Pat, Agnes, Christine. Thank you. Yes.
No alcohol, Yvonne. Yeah, I can do it. I know about week.
So when does this
I'm
re-air?
going to reduce it. I'm going to reduce it.
Yeah, Mr. Ellis, if
Yes.
for people who missed it but want to share it with their friends, when is it going to air again?
So we're going to re-air it twice. This was so good. This is so nice. We're going to re-air it twice. So we're going to do it again. Let's do it Friday morning, right? I think that's what people are really going to need.
Yes, feeling it. And then they can come get the book and the journal, right? And sign up for the third.
Friday. Get it. So we're going to re-air this on Friday morning, and then probably again on Sunday morning as we get ready to go back to try to get back to whatever normal life is, to kind of prepare us. And that movement, we didn't talk about movement enough, but I really want people to get that walk in. Do not wait. I know we make these New Year's resolutions, but that is a trick. Don't trick. The best time to start is today, right? Get up.
I would say 1 minute of movement. I challenge in my Facebook group I got on today, and I just challenge them to do 1 minute. And people say, "Oh, what's 1 minute?" But if I ask a poll, and I'm not asking you to say, most people did not do 1 minute today of intentional movement, intentional exercise. So I just say do 1 minute. And most people are going to end up doing 5, going to end up doing 10, doing more. And it all counts towards that goal of 150 minutes a week, which is what you're aiming to get to. So just 1 minute. That's all I say.
Whew, boy, this is so good. We got to do Dr. Sylvia, you have been fantastic.
Excellent.
Well,
Excellent.
thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Ellis, for having me. Thank you, Dr. Gigi. I love you. I appreciate
love
you.
Too.
Thank you.
Kiss your children for me. Say hi to
I will. They're acting a fool down there, but I'm just trying to be safe here.
Tell them their Auntie Gigi is going to talk with them if they behave.
Okay, I see you, Robin. Do your thing. Yeah. So continue. This is great work. You all, the audience, thank you all for keeping us energized. I think y'all are the reason why we do it over time. Because you're asking such great questions and you're so engaged that we want to continue to give this, because these are the type of conversations we need to have. And I know we talk about disease states and getting out of it and overcoming it, but the best way is to not have it, right? Is to not get to that. So we talked about obesity leading to 236. Yeah, that number is going to get burned in my head. I heard it one time and it stuck with me. 236 diseases can flow from just being overweight. And so we've got but the more we have more control of that by what we put in our mouth and what we do with our bodies. And so if we're moving and we're being mindful about what we're putting in our bodies, we have a better chance of staving off those other illnesses that we talk about on Black Doctor, and you talk to Miss Dr. Gigi about. we can eliminate all of that if we just are mindful about what we put in our body and what we do. So that's my soapbox. Anybody else before we sign off?
No, I hope that everybody has a happy Indigenous Peoples Day. And
Yes.
remember, it
Yes.
was those illegal aliens that came and were served by the Indigenous people a meal. Just remember that.
Woo. Unlearn some foolishness, y'all, please.
I just want to say I'm so grateful for this time with you all and for sharing, for all the audience energy. And I'm grateful to God just for the opportunity to share my gifts with the world. And I just want to remind you, if you do nothing, be grateful for your body. Like, regardless what size, what shape, what you like, what you don't like, it's yours, and own it and embrace it and just be grateful for it. Say thank you to your body today.
Amen.
Lovely.
Amen. Man.
Thanks.